Okay, team, welcome back to the podcast. You're joining me, Pete, and we have Matt O'Connor back for part two, round two. If you've not listened to the first episode we did with Matt, which was about 4 months ago, and we really delved into what Fathers for Justice is and like how it can help guys that are navigating divorce and have children. And it was such a popular episode. We've got Matt back in for another round. Matt, welcome in, mate.
Thank you, sir. Good to speak to you, Pete. Good to see you looking well, and your the shrubbery in the background and stuff like that. It's all looking good, bro. I'm still keen to get you into one of our super suits.
Yeah.
I think I think you look better in a super suit than I would. I look more like the Michelin Man than Superman, but I think you'll be a little bit younger, fitter, better physique. So,
Yeah, my 3-year-old, I just bought him one of those little Superman outfits.
all right, okay, cool.
So good. He just buzzes around the house and I went to the barbers the other day. I'm like, do you want to wear you? He's like, yeah, I want to wear it. I'm like, fair play. Just wears it
Top,
everywhere.
top lad, top lad. Yeah, it doesn't look so great when you get to my age, yeah. Sort of 57, it's not a particularly dignified look, but most people tell me most things I've done are not particularly dignified. So but yeah, next time you feel the urge, Buckingham Palace is calling you, Parliament,
Yeah,
old
we'll be
school,
there.
old school process.
Yeah. Matt, let's dive straight in because I've got a question on the tip of my tongue.
Yeah,
So I've spoke to a number of guys recently, a couple of clients and some of the guys that aren't clients.
yeah,
And these guys are navigating divorce
yeah.
and they all have children. And what immediately came across to me, and I went through this myself, was naivety in that like anything bad's gonna happen. And it's like, oh, I've got like, we've got a great relationship with my ex-partner, my ex-wife. So, the me seeing the children's going to be fine, and like just not even thinking that it could go down a bad route. And I don't know whether this guy's just like blind to it, being naive to it, don't want to think about it, so put it to the side,
Mm.
or just like not knowing how like pear-shaped things can go.
Yeah.
Like for you, what do you see that too? Do you see guys being super naive?
Oh, crikey. I mean, I was super naive. Let's start. I mean, I'm on the phone all day to dads. And my team on the phone all day to dads, and we're absolutely stacked at the moment. We're always busy, but it's really, really busy at the moment. And it's partly because the family court system is literally breaking down. It's never been great, but it's in a really bad place at the moment. But the calls you get from dads, a lot of dads make some dangerous assumptions. And assumptions are like the father of all fuck ups. If you assume something without obtaining information or getting advice or getting knowledge, you are going to end up in a bad place. The chances are you're going to end up in an absolutely terrible place. And if you look at the stats, the basic stats, year on year trends increasing 5-7%, number of cases going into the family courts are going up. Over 40%, over 40% of separating couples now end up going to court. That's a staggering number
That's a
of
big number,
people
yeah.
going into the court system who've separated. So the issue is dads come to us and they go, I've got rights, I've got rights. I assume, yeah, I thought the same thing. I thought I had rights back in 23 years ago when I got divorced and went for the family courts. You assume, everybody else has got rights. Surely half the population, the fathers have got rights. No, you've got no rights. And that was confirmed in a thing called the Family Justice Review 2010. We were dealing with David Cameron, and David Cameron got into power, said he was going to scrap this review, which Labour had started, left the review running. And David Norgrove, who wrote the report, said fathers have no rights and should have no rights to see their children because it would trump the child's best interest principle, which was in the 1989 Children Act. So what that means is basically the court decides what's in the child's best interests. And it said basically the presumption is, it's not in writing or in law, but the presumption is children live with the mother and fathers get some form of access, or what they call now in the legalese bullshit, a presumption of involvement. Now,
Right.
that presumption of involvement can mean sending a Christmas card to your child once a year. Doesn't mean you'll see your child. So basically, a lot of dads confuse your parental rights with the sort of parental rights and responsibilities. Your parental rights and responsibilities do not give you a right in law to see your children. They only give you a right to educational information and medical information. So your only right in law is to make an application to court to see your children. That's if the children live with the mother. If you are still in the house with the mother, do not leave the house. If you leave the house, your rights will go up in smoke because then mother becomes the parent of care and you become the absent parent. So I know it's a bit complicated, but you just have to understand you've got no rights. That's just have you have to understand that basic fact. The other mistake dads make, Pete, is going to get a divorce. Right, going to get a divorce. Women don't marry you for your money; they divorce you for it. In most cases, the worst thing you can do is get divorced. It's what we call the deadly divorce trap. Because divorce has terrible outcomes for men. The suicide rate goes up like that.
Yeah.
Nothing good about it. But really, you don't want to get divorced and start divorce proceedings until you've sorted out the children's matters. So it's important you put the children first. And then if you were to get, for example, a live with both parents order, so the children spend 50% of the time with mum, 50% of the time with you, then any financial settlement following divorce is going to be equal, right? But a lot of mothers, a lot of solicitors, they know how to game the system. And they'll say to mum, children live with you, dad gets to see them a little bit, therefore your need is greater than dad's. And therefore you're going to get spousal maintenance, you're going to get child support, ka-ching, ka-ching, ka-ching. She'll be in the house with the kids, with your cash. So always go for a child arrangements order first because that will determine the finances at a later date.
Yeah. Because I've actually heard of a number of cases like that.
Mm.
And like these are just good guys that I'm talking to.
Yeah,
One of the guys I was talking to is over £300,000 in the hole, and that was down to the amount of child support and maintenance that he was paying. He was also paying all the legal fees, and he wasn't seeing his kids or
yeah,
kid. He wasn't seeing his
yeah,
daughter.
yeah. It's crippling. It's crippling. And unfortunately, they introduced no fault divorce a couple of years ago. We campaigned against it because you can't reform a little bit of the family justice system. You have to reform all of it. It all needs, an absolutely monumental change. But you go to Europe, for example, there was a presumption of divorce equality, right? There's no presumption of divorce equality. The divorce laws in this country have been made up by judges who, through case law, have evolved and changed things. But the presumption in this country is still, in an age of equality, remember, we are in the 21st century, that presumption of still, we have a presumption of spousal maintenance, that the father still looks after the mother, you still pay her once you've divorced. Really? In the 21st century? You go to Sweden, boom, there's none of that. You don't get any spousal mates. You might get it for a few months for a transition period. And we still have a presumption that fathers are duty bound, this ancient, historic, prehistoric thinking that, the mothers need sort of caring and looking after and financial support after they've married. No, no. We're constantly told people have to stand on their own 2 feet, take responsibility. They should share the care of the children. And what I say, Peter, I was having an argument with sort of rabid, frothy at the mouth feminist the other day, right? God bless her. And she was no fan of mine, frankly. And I said to her, what sort of person wants to keep a woman chained to the sink? What sort of person wants to keep a mother chained to her children? Surely we want mothers to go out and start jobs, to become chief executive officers, to become MPs, to set the world alight. Why would you want the children to be chained to the mother and not see the father? Why wouldn't you want to share the care with the father? Why wouldn't you want the paternal family to step in and provide childcare via the grandparents, whatever? It's bonkers. I mean, people say to me, I'm anti-feminist. I might be anti, I'm not a big fan of feminism. I'm a big fan of equality.
Mm.
And I say to people, this idea, this Stone Age prehistoric thinking that the kids still live with mum is bonkers. And it's only applied on the basis of our gender. Can you believe it? So for me, we're the progressives. We're the people trying to say, look, we want to change this because we want better outcomes for our children, better outcomes for our families, better outcomes for our country, better outcomes for men, better outcomes for fathers who are on the receiving end of a huge amount of toxic masculinity and all this bullshit. It is rubbish. The outcomes for men in this country are apocalyptic, right
Yeah.
across the board. And the family courts are kind of like the breeding ground for that.
Yeah. Yeah. What would you say to, so, one of my guys just coming out of a divorce. He's got children.
Mm.
Or they're just committing to a divorce, going, and
Yeah.
this is the way forward for us. What would you say are the steps for him to start thinking about taking?
First thing, right? Don't go to a solicitor. It's the worst thing you're going to do. Solicitor will start sending lovely letters to mum. Mum will engage her solicitor. She'll start lending lovely letters back. And then next thing you spent 4 or 5K going nowhere. All you do is you found a family mediator, go to mediation, which don't expect anything from it. Most mums don't go. 95% failure rate, but you've got to go. Tick box exercise. You've got to get your MIAM form, MIAM form from the mediator and then go to court. If you want to give mediation a go and you generally think it's going to work, good luck to you. I haven't seen anything work in the last 5 or 6 years. I don't know a case where mediation has worked, but if you want to give it a go, good luck to you. Chances are, we had a case yesterday where we said the dad wanted to go, okay, go to mediation, do it all. And the mum seemed reasonable until he said the very words, which is this: oh, we've agreed it in a mediated agreement. And we said to her, okay, are you happy to put this into what's called a consent order? She went ballistic, right? Because a mediated agreement has less value than your toilet paper.
Right.
It is legally privileged, can't be used in court. So what you say to the mother, we want to use this, what we've agreed in mediation, let's put this into a consent order. So it's rubber stamped by the court and you've got legal protection for your relationship with your kids. So it's another thing that we say to people. But you've got to go, don't go to solicitors, you're going to burn 10 to 30,000 straight up. And then upwards of 60, 80, 250. And the biggest spend we had here was a rock star who spent 3.4 million.
Right. Wow.
Those are numbers. Those are
Yeah.
numbers you spend. But the thing is, go to mediation, get your MIAM form, go to court. It's that simple. The one thing I would say is if you're going to make an application to court, get some advice from us or from somebody else just to help you do the C100 form, because a lot of dads go in and fill it in.
A
And
C100 form.
yeah, C100 form is an application for a child arrangements order.
Right.
In a lot of cases, what we push for is shared care, which is technically known as a live with both parents order. But you want to get it drafted properly, because if you don't get it drafted properly and you miss information, then the issue with that is going to be that you can't change that at a later date. So that could cause all sorts of problems. So it's really important at the beginning you get good advice, you get help doing the initial application, and then hopefully from that point onwards, notwithstanding the issues with the family justice system at the moment, you'll be in a better position. But you need to do that before the finances. You need to do that before asking for a divorce, unless there's a very good reason you need a divorce. Because as I say, the finances in divorce are based on need. If mother's claiming the children live with her, her need is greater than yours. The other issue you're going to have, our friends at the child maintenance service, I mean, pretty grim, horrendous people. They all go that your child support is based on the number of nights the children spend with you. And the mother, who's making a land grab re the divorce finances, will make a land grab re child support. And she'll say, oh, he's not seeing the kids, or he's getting, maybe 1 night or 2 nights a week. Another reason why you need a child arrangements order to show the CMS, child maintenance service, this is my order. I'm getting the kids 7 nights out of 14, for example. So that will reduce your child support liability.
Right.
I
Okay.
don't know if that will make sense, but it's a lot to get through. But yeah, that's the basics. Uh,
Yeah.
so don't don't go to a solicitor. Don't get divorced quickly. Don't assume you've got any rights. Say we live in it's the opposite to what we're told by the media and by society. Yeah, we actually live in the matriarchy. This is the age of Big Mother, um, the age of the me, and me too movement, as I call it. Switch on the TV, look what happened to Johnny Depp, look what happened to all sorts of famous people. You can point a finger these days and accuse a man of anything. And that's another mistake. A lot of dads go, oh, she hasn't made any allegations. She hasn't got any proof of what she's alleging. But these days, Pete, you can point a finger and say, oh, he was coercive and controlling. No evidence required. You're in the civil courts, and they operate on the balance of probability. That's their test. Criminal court is beyond a reasonable doubt. It's a much higher threshold. So, mother, to game the system, to get legal aid, she will, in a lot of cases, make domestic abuse allegations. And since they introduced coercive controlling as a factor, and also in criminal courts, but also civil courts, it's been much easier for mothers to, to point a finger. I had a guy the other day, and he'd given his ex 20, 30K to help her out. And she turned around and said, that's financially controlling.
Right. Wow.
So he gave her money to help her. He thought he was doing the right thing. And then she flipped it round and used it against him. I
Yeah.
mean, literally, the stuff we see is incredible. And the dads are going, oh, she's got no evidence. I said, stop watching Hollywood legal dramas. This is not like, A Few Good Men with Jack Nicholson and Tom Cruise. I said, these are the family courts. It's a parallel universe. Whatever mum says, the courts and Kafka's, the Court Welfare Service, will generally take at face value. So we have a protocol for trying to undermine and
Because
interrogate.
it's like what I see with a lot of it's like a lot of guys will just want to keep the peace.
Hmm. Yeah,
Guys want peace,
yeah,
and
yeah,
so
yeah.
even what you said earlier about like not moving out,
Hmm.
because for a lot of men it'd be like, look, the easiest thing for me to do right now is
Yeah.
I'll just move out the house. It'd be easier. I'll go and get my own place. But then that which guys trying to keep the peace, guys essentially just being nice,
Hmm.
and then but that could fuck him over.
Yeah, I've done it. I did it myself.
Yeah.
I moved out. I thought, well, surely this is the right thing to do. Must be the right thing to do. You don't want to be in a house where there's conflict, risk of arguments. But what we do, I've got a case at the moment. We're just literally doing at the moment. We're going to do what's called living together arrangements. So basically, the parents agree rotas in the house, agree not to make allegations against the other, agree to respect each other's parenting and stuff like that. But you've got to make an application for child arrangement while you're still in the property. You've still got shared care.
Mm.
You've gone, bang, that's it, game over. Mum's got all the cards. You have nothing. But while you're in the house, our advice is really clear: avoid all arguments and disputes with the mother. Just not worth it. Um, Try and put some kind of arrangement together. If she's got a solicitor, you can draft the living together arrangement and say, so you've got something. If the police are called, for example, you've got something to show the police. But while you're in the property, you are at risk. Absolutely, you're at risk, which is why making the application to the court is urgent. Because if you're in the house, you are at risk of one, mother saying, you've pushed her. And remember, if she attacks you and you push her back, the police will arrest you, probably for assault, even if mother's attacked you first. I'm afraid that's the way.
Mm.
That's the way it goes. Then they'll probably bail you not to return to the property. So once you're out of the house, a lot of dads, you might own the house, but you ain't going back in. Once you're gone, you're gone. That's it. Or mother could seek an occupation order via the court, seek a non-molestation order to basically remove you from the property and say you can't go within 100 meters of the house, etc., etc. So all the while this is going on, while you're still there, you need to get your application in for a child arrangements order, for live with both parents order, while the legal position is still that you've got shared care. So if you sit on your hands or you leave your house, you're in a thousand times worse position. It really is not a good move to do that.
Yeah. Once if we were to fast track a little bit and go right, so divorce order has been put through, the divorce has been finalized. Is there anything that can come back and bite a father in the ass after like the divorce itself has been finalized? Is there
With the
things that can happen
divorce,
later down the line?
yeah, but the divorce is just a technical bit. Right, that's just like tick box, boom, boom, boom. it's still like the fraud of the no fault divorce scene. They say, oh, it's gonna, all this kind of like rainbows and fucking unicorns and all the rest of it they were selling. I said, oh yeah, it's going to make it better for kids. Making no fault divorce makes a difference. It just means dad's going to get divorced quicker. You're going to lose your money quicker. You're going to lose your kids quicker. Um, but all that's going to happen is the problem's still going to be in the financial proceedings. You've still got finances to do. Doesn't solve that. You've still got children proceedings, and it doesn't solve that. So you've still got the two main outstanding matters are still to be dealt with by the courts. So divorce, the technical aspect of divorce doesn't solve anything.
Right.
You've still got the financial proceedings and the children proceedings, which can last years, and
Yeah.
we can burn serious, serious money going through. But as I say, the advice that we give, and it's advice for a very good reason, is you know focus on the children first. Get your application into court for the kids first, because that determines the finances and any financial settlement. And if you can go to the courts, well, my need is great as the same as mum, because we both look after the kids. We both have shared care. Great. You can say to the CMS, actually, I've got the kids half the time, 7 nights out of 14. Why would I need to pay any child support? It's equal. But the problem is mums will go to their solicitor, they'll go running off and go, and she'll go, oh, yeah, he was financially controlling or coercively controlling. Bang, you get free legal aid. Fantastic. I have to pay a penny. Two, you're going to make a claim that you're the parent with care. So if you're married, you're going to get the lion's share of any financial settlement because your need will be greater than mum's, than father's. So she'll claim 60%, 70%, 80% plus of your assets and finances. And also she'll cash in on the CMS by saying, no, he only sees the kids a couple of nights a week or doesn't see the kids at all.
Yeah.
So for men, it's a lose, lose, lose scenario. And it all hangs on what you do right at the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah. This was like a few months back. I was actually having a walk near where I live, and I hadn't had an altercation with my ex-partner, but we had this bit of disagreement. And
Yeah.
me and my ex-partner, we've got a good relationship. We're on good terms. We've navigated this way more effectively than I've seen plenty of other guys and girls do this. However, like we had a bit of an altercation. I was pissed off and I was feeling like pretty anxious in the moment because there was like there was things around my son.
Yeah.
And then I kind of like got my shit together and I reminded myself, I was like, "Do you know what, Pete? This isn't that bad for you. Like you've got a good solid arrangement. It like you know where you're at. For many, many guys, that is not the case. And like I remember like in that moment, I was feeling fucking anxious, I was feeling overwhelmed. I had 1,000 thoughts going through my head. And I thought, fucking hell, imagine the guys that aren't seeing like I get to see Leo all the time, like that aren't seeing their children, that have no idea what's going on. Like
Yeah.
that's got to lead to like serious anxiety, depression,
Yeah.
and
Oh, yeah.
ultimately the worst case scenario.
Yeah. I mean, I mean, when I went through it 23 years ago, um, my spiritual advisor was Sir Jack of Daniels.
Yeah.
I drank a lot of Jack. And I used to design bars and restaurants. So I was in probably the worst environment. And I was going for the family courts. I couldn't see my kids. I couldn't get into my house. I couldn't get my property back. My business partner was killed, and my life was like ground zero. I had nothing. And yeah, I had I ended up on Waterloo Bridge. I think it was the night before hearing, and I just like Pete. I was done.
Mm,
Literally, I'd say I just didn't know what to do, and I used to keep a list. This is in days before iPhones and stuff. But I had a list of reasons not to carry on. It literally I unfolded. I used to keep in pocket, and then reasons to carry on, which
yeah.
my voice.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure how or why. I just had this idea of instead of jumping off bridges, we start climbing them and we
Mm,
start doing something. And I went back into court and I said to the judge, if it's the last fucking thing I do on earth, I'm going to put you out of a job. And next time I'm coming back, there'll be 200 guys behind me. And I climbed on the bench to tell her that in the court. I thought, she's gonna send me down. I don't care. I don't fucking care. Walked out of court, and the Kafka school wealth officer came after me and said, Matt, where are you going? I said, I'm done. I've got nothing more to give. on this hamster wheel of misery. I was literally, if I carried on, I'd have been dead.
Yeah.
2 weeks later, the children up staying with me
Yeah.
because my ex, I think she realised that she pushed me as far as I could go. And the problem is, we lose so many dads, lose so many fathers. If you look at like the suicide rates, the suicide epidemic, and it's not rate, it's an epidemic of the men who die. 14 men die every day. It's over 5,000 men a year. These are not just men. I hate the generic term men. They're somebody's son.
Yeah.
They're somebody's brother. They're somebody's father. They're somebody's uncle. They're somebody's friend. And these men we are losing, and nobody gives a fucking shit in this
Yeah.
country. Even the Samaritans, it took them years to recognize that the most at-risk suicide group are separated dads. It took them years to even acknowledge that because it doesn't fit the narrative of, toxic masculinity and all this. But the men that we speak to, I mean, I have calls here where I speak to guys and they literally just cry
Mm.
all the way through. Now, I'm pretty toughened to it after 23 years of doing this gig. But there are times when, it's difficult. And then the worst ones we get are the 3 or 4 suicide calls a month. And we end up speaking to the grandparents. And just some absolutely, there was a guy, it was a couple of years ago now, who'd rang up his ex-wife. His ex-wife had said he abused the children, touched the children. The guy was absolutely devastated, and he called her from Beachy Head, which sounds like a bit of a cliche place there, but he was on Beachy Head, and he was on the phone to her when he went over.
Yeah.
And then you speak to the grandparents. My God, Pete, on the worst calls of my life,
Yeah.
because
Not surprising.
not only are they going for their son, but they've got grandchildren.
Yeah.
They don't want to say, they don't want to put any. The problem with suicide is nobody wants to talk about male suicide because of the stigma attached to it. You say to the people I speak to, please, please, I'm begging you, say something. Because unless we talk about this, we can't begin to, tackle the male suicide epidemic. And it's so important that we do that. It's so important we have a proper open discussion. But this is why I've been campaigning for years for a minister for men.
Yeah.
Why have we got a minister for women, no minister for men? When more men, commit suicide, where more men are die from cancer. I've just seen this a Race for Life thing by Cancer Research UK recently. A few years ago, Pete, you weren't allowed to take part if you're a man. You weren't allowed to take part because we complained that my then 14-year-old son could take part, but not if he was 15. So he could take part. His older brothers couldn't take part. It was a scandal because we weren't talking about male cancers, prostate cancer, all these things. Now, I'm pleased they've changed and I'm pleased they recognised it. But why is it all such a struggle for us men to get recognised, to get a voice in our parliament, to get representation in our parliament? Why can't we have a minister for men, even on things like domestic abuse? It's all men. It's all men are perpetrators, women are victims. Bullshit.
Mm.
1 in 3 victims of domestic abuse, according to the last British Crime Survey for England, was 1 in 3 victims are actually men.
Yeah.
I can tell you that's massively underreported
Because men won't report it.
and don't
Yeah.
report. So all these issues, they kind of run into each other because obviously a lot of men get arrested when they're getting separate. As you said, it's easy in the fog of emotional conflict to lose your shit, to say something, to get into a dispute. Right. Guess what? We're human beings, right? We're not bloody perfect. We're going to have arguments. Things are going to happen. But the system punishes men on the basis of their gender. And people don't believe me. Good luck. Look at the stats. Look at the information that we put out. I can only speak the truth of over 1 million inquiries in 23 years and being in court every single fucking day. Yeah, we're representing and helping dads, and that's my experience, and that's why I'm such a passionate advocate. For men's rights. Not that we want supremacy. We just want equality to be treated the same. And what drives me every single day, Pete, I've got three boys, 28, 26, and 18, and they're incredible men. And they've done really well in spite of me. And but you're going to go, I don't want it happening to them.
No.
Yeah, one of my sons had an issue where everything, he said, God, Dad, everything you said, like he had a girlfriend, he had an issue with her. And he was, and I said to him, you've got to report this to the police. And he said, oh, I can't go to the police. I don't go to the police. I said, if you don't report it and it happens again at a later date, they're going to say, why didn't you report it to us?
Yeah.
So I would say that if you're a man and you have been a victim of domestic abuse, you must report it. Because if you don't and you later rely on it, then the police aren't going to believe you.
Yeah. 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 Absolutely. And uh, I think probably over the last 6 weeks, I spoke to three guys that were suicidal.
Mm,
One of them was separated from his wife and had a child,
mm,
and didn't know what was going on with was seeing his child, and these are they're normal guys. They're not broken guys. They don't need fixing.
mm.
Then they're good guys. They're in
Yeah,
corporate or they're running the business
yeah.
and they just want to do good on the world, and they've just got too much shit on their plate. Don't know how to deal with it. Not sure where to go, where to turn, and sometimes it's like, well, the most logical thing to do is just to leave the world.
Mm, yeah. And that's understandable. I say being there, and it's an understandable reaction. But the thing is, and I say it from my own personal experience, my oldest boy ended up working for NASA. And he was 25, I think, at the time. He just graduated, ended up working for NASA in California. And me and my youngest flew over to meet him. And we did a road trip to Vegas, all three of us in a car.
Amazing.
And we got to Death Valley, and there's a picture of all of us at Death Valley. Fucking, it's roasting. It was in the evening. We were a few miles outside of Vegas. And I turned to Daniel, I said, mate, if you'd said to me 23 years ago,
Yeah,
we've been on a road trip to Vegas, God, if I'd taken my life,
yeah,
what would I miss? I say to people, it's like the old Churchillian phrase: if you're going through hell, keep going, because things generally do eventually turn around. Um, but you've got to get good advice at the beginning. You've got to understand this is not a quick process, and you've got to dig in. And the really important thing to say to people: keep on top of your business. That's a lifeline, right? So important to have other stuff going on that you're focused on. If you've got, and I'm not giving dating advice here, but if you've got a partner, new partner, some of our greatest advocates, some of our most militant advocates are other women,
yeah,
yeah, girlfriends, new partners, new wives who see the pain that their partner's going through and feel incredibly passionate, committed to it. So the old cliche, problem shared is problem halved. Absolutely correct. Or speak to your family. Make sure you've tried and got family around you, parents, brothers, sisters, whoever there is, you've got a bit of a support network. Be careful. One of the things and I went through this, I had real issues of alcohol, where I had to fire Sir Jack of Daniels, and I just got depressed. I got stressed. I got depressed, and my only way of dealing with it was just to drink.
It's but it drinks. It's a suppressant. It's gonna just
Yeah,
numb the
yeah.
problem that's there. It's not gonna get rid of the problem.
Yeah, and I went through, really, really grim time. I speak to a lot of dads who've got, drink or drugs issues, and I totally identify with it because I've been there. But you've got to, as best you can do, is just try and stay on top of it, or try and control it, or try and put it into little blocks. Where if I'm going to have a drink, don't drink during the week. Just have a drink on the Saturday. Just try and contain it as best you can do. And obviously, you can go to things like AA and stuff, or see counselors. Again, there's not much support for dads. If you're a man who's got a problem, you're going to see a GP. They might pick you into see a counselor. Good luck. You might be waiting a long time for that. They might refer you to an alcohol and drug service. Again, that's very patchy depending on your postcode. But you do need a bit of love and support to get you through it. I was lucky. I actually had a girlfriend at the time, Pete. She was a stroppy Australian woman, and but she managed to steer me at times when I was refusing to be steered or guided. And because I was like a bull in a china shop on steroids, going for the family courts. I was not a guy. I don't like authority at the best of times. So me and judges did not mix well. And but I managed to get through it and come out on top somehow and do it. And I can tell anybody, look, if I can do it, you can do it. I promise you, it is doable. And I think people need hope that yes, it's tough. Yes, it's difficult. Yes, it's challenging. Yes, the odds might seem monumental, but you can get through it and you can do it. And but it's a painful process. And the thing to do, you're going to be better prepared for dealing with this if you're not naive, if you don't make assumptions, if you don't go in thinking, oh, I've got rights and stuff, because that's where most men fuck up because they make the incorrect assumptions about things. And going through the courts, for example, is like crossing a minefield. It's knowing where not to tread. So a lot of the mistakes that are made are self-inflicted,
Yeah.
self-inflicted mistakes, and that can be avoided by early interventions and getting good advice and telling people what to do. But it literally is a question of knowing where to tread and where not to tread.
Yeah, yeah. For guys that are just about to go through the court system, like there any these are things you need to avoid if you're just about to go through the court system with your children?
Right. Well, if you've got kids, and whatever the situation is, and you need advice, you come to us. There are various other support groups out there. You use Google and find people. You can come to Fathers for Justice if you need help. And then we can. I mean, we do consultations and stuff with people and just try and get them some advice to get them moving in the right direction. I'd say I don't recommend the use of solicitors. I say solicitors support the father in the way the rope supports the hanging man. And yeah, if you want to use a solicitor, good luck to you, but you're going to burn 10 to 30,000 straight up. And I don't think the solicitors tell you what you want to hear, not what you need to hear. The difference between us and anybody else is, yeah, I'm driven by passion, I'm driven by commitment, I'm driven by wanting to help other dads because I went through it and nobody told me what to expect. And I wish somebody had said to me, Matt, this is the truth. This is what you're going to have. This is the medicine you're going to need to take. It's unpleasant medicine. You're not going to be happy. I have a lot of people, Pete, a lot of dads are not happy with the advice. They go, because I'm not telling them what I want to hear.
Yeah.
But you need to hear this. This is your life hanging by a thread, your relationship with your children hanging by a thread. You need to be told what's going to happen to you when you enter the court system and how that system and that process is going to be managed. So the first thing I implore anybody, don't do anything without getting advice from wherever you get it from. Get advice before you make a single decision. Yeah, and ideally, if you're still in the house with the mother, so a guy sweet is in that position, stay where you are. Don't do a thing, because if you do, if you walk out, if you make a bad decision, that can echo all the way through your case. And don't get into any arguments with the mother. Don't get into any disputes with the mother. It is folly. If you think you're going to come out on top, you will not. Right? You will not. So you've just got to go. It's what I call it's the humble pie diet. And let me tell you, Pete, I've been on a few of those in my time. And but the humble pie diet is just like it's a tactical thing. Yeah, you're just going. I'm going to like be nice. I'm going to play nicely for the interim because you know at some point you're going to go to court. So you just need to follow the protocols, follow the right things to do, but don't go storming around thinking, making assumptions. Because a lot of dads leave the house voluntarily and then they try to get back in. You ain't getting back in, even if you're in the house, because once you're out, you're out. If you try getting back in, mum will call the police, you'll be arrested, bail not to return, etc., etc. And the other thing you've got to watch out for also, another important thing is the non-molestation order, because mums can go to court and get us like that. They're giving out like confetti. And that's basically preventing you contacting the mother, going near the house in 100 meters or whatever, or using any third party to contact the mother. And if you breach a non-molestation order, maximum 5 years inside.
Wow.
And police have automatic power of arrest. So if mum says you breached it, they'll just turn up at your door, potentially at 4 o'clock in the morning, as well. But the other day, bang on
And
the door.
it's easy for mothers to put one of those orders in place.
Yeah, they just go to a solicitor. Solicitor say, has he been contacting you? Has he been sending, if you're drunk and you drink and dial or drink and text and you've said something stupid when you're down the pub after 8 pints, and it happens, I did it. Um, you're at risk of a non-molestation order. And the first thing you'll find out about it is when it's served on you, or
Yeah,
when,
because I spoke to someone not too long ago. He didn't become a client of ours in the end, but he was going through exactly that,
yeah,
and he had one of those orders put on him because I
yeah.
remember him. I didn't quite know what it was, and he was saying I actually can't be within 100 meters of her,
Mm.
and and he goes, he did. He just turned up at his door one day.
But the mistake a lot of dads do then is because she'll have supplied a witness statement and accompanying statement listing the allegations, which because she'll get legal aid, free legal aid, because she's accusing him of domestic abuse. So a lot of dads then spend thousands trying to defend him. You can't defend a non-molestation order. I'm going to tell you, you won't. I don't know anybody in 23 years who's ever defended a non-mol. I mean, people say to me, "Oh, my solicitor said I can defend her." Okay, ask your solicitor when she last successfully defended
Yeah.
a non-molestation, because they're given out because of the domestic abuse lobby. There's a presumption we just leave them in place. Now, what you can do is when you go to court, because you'll be given a hearing date when you're on notice, you go to court and just simply offer undertakings to the court. You're not going to contact the mother. You don't have anything to do with the mother anyway, because anything you do contact communication with will put you at risk. So you can generally deal with it most times by way of undertakings. But what you don't want to do is go off and spend 5 or 6 grand trying to defend a non-mol. Because the problem is, if you've got a non-mol, you're probably not seeing the kids.
Mm.
So the allegations she's made are going to end up in the family proceedings anyway. And you need to focus on making an application to court to see your kids. So it's a little complicated, but it is important, again, that these things are dealt with properly. Because if you don't deal with it properly, you just dig in a deeper and deeper hole. But it
Well,
can be sorted. It can be, we're lucky that the people, we're not miracle workers. I mean, sometimes we get people coming to us and their cases have been on for 2 years and they think I've got some kind of like, magical wand that I can wave around or crystal balls and predict the future. No, we're not miracle workers, but what we are is we'll give you, the earlier we're involved in the case, the better, the more control we have on a case, the better the direction, the better outcomes we can get. And what we want to do, where possible, is get dads live with both parents orders, equal parenting, shared care, 7 nights out of 14. That is our mission. And we're very successful at doing it, but we can't do it in every case. We can't do it all the time. And anybody who says they can will be lying, because the courts are incredibly, incredibly difficult. What they've introduced, Pete, is recently they've introduced gatekeeping hearings, which,
okay.
which is a non-attendance hearing. So you make the application to court, we get a gatekeeping hearing. All that does is kick the can down the road even further. The gatekeeping basically deals with judicial allocation. Does it go to magistrates? Does it go to a district judge? That could be dealt with in the court office. It used to be dealt with in the court office, but what they do is they kick the can down the road. I had a case in Basildon this week. One of my team was in Basildon, and there was a hearing. Kafkas hadn't turned up. The legal advisor was bonkers and said, "Oh, we can't make an order unless you make an agreement." Well, of course you can make an order. It's a court. You have magistrates sitting behind you. You can make an order. And they refused to make an order. And they said the next hearing would be in November.
Right. Fucking hell.
We're in April,
Yeah.
November. And it would be by CVP, right, online with a judge, district judge, who could be anywhere in the country. I've never heard of that. Never heard of that before. So the courts are backing up. So they're introducing delaying tactics, so that just so they can try and manage the number of inquiries that are going through. So it is difficult, and I'm not saying it's easy, but you want to do it intelligently, you want to do it economically, and you want to try and do it successfully, and that's by getting the best advice possible.
Yeah. I spoke to do you know George the Tin Man?
No,
He's he runs a great channel on YouTube and Instagram. He's got a big following for men's rights.
right?
And he was also talking about needing a minister for men,
Yeah, absolutely.
because of the minister for women, and there's not for men. Like, have you seen progression on that?
No, um, we've been banging on about it for years. The issue is the political climate. I spoke to Ian Duncan Smith a few years ago. He had a former leader of the Conservative Party, and he said anybody who raises father's rights, it's political suicide.
Right.
I think there's one, Philip Davis, who's just been Knight, I think he's raised fathers' issues and men's issues, but he's a lone voice. The main political party's not interested. So we need political change in this country. And really, we need a sort of political movement that's going to try and move the dial. But at the moment, Conservatives, Labour, and Liberals are three arses on the same, three cheeks of the same arse, basically. Um, and in the age of Me Too, I mean, nobody wants to deal with men's issues. Nobody wants. I mean, Jess Phillips, my old member of my fan club, God bless her. The Labour MP, she said like every day is like International Men's Day. Bollocks, bollocks. And this is the mother of two boys. And then you start looking. It's quite interesting when you start looking back into where this myth of male privilege came from. It's absolute bullshit. And you go back to the suffragettes, and you go back to Emmeline Pankhurst, who was this incredibly wealthy and privileged woman who ran the white feather movement, shaming men, young men, kids to go and fight the First World War. And she had servants, she had money. And the misrepresentation of the People's Act in 1921, whatever it was, I forget, my memory's a bit hazy, but they say, oh, yeah, women got the vote. I think 8 million women got the right to vote, and something like 5 million men got the right to vote, because it wasn't about gender, it was whether or not you own property.
Mm.
And most women, their husbands own the property. But there was like 5 million men who have been sent off to die on behalf of these women who also didn't have. So, but they forget the men in that piece of legislation who were also given the right to vote. And I think from that point onwards, it was this kind of myth kind of developed that somehow, men are privileged, that men are in control. There's more women in Parliament now, but the men who were in control of Parliament, and are still in control to an extent, they're terrified of women. It's like, we men don't discuss issues. The men in Parliament don't discuss issues. The men in
Yeah.
Parliament don't talk about men's issues. Oh my God, no, we can't talk about men's issues because we'd be seen as being anti-women. We'd be seen as,
Toxic.
anti-mother. So there is no debate going on about it. I've challenged Jess Phillips. I challenged the barrister called Charlotte Proudman. I've challenged everybody. Let's have a chat. Let's have a debate about it. I am house trained. I don't buy it, right? Let's talk about it. No, frightened. They run off. Chicken. And you go, well, how are we going to debate this issue and move this issue on when we're talking about, in the case of Jess Phillips, you've got two sons. I mean, what's she going to say to her sons when they grow up and then they end up on the receiving end of her party's policies, which, to be fair, are no different to the Conservatives or nothing, no different to Liberals. So it is a tough gig, Pete, because of the lack of political will to change things. And there's
Yeah.
nobody out there really doing anything about it politically. And we've been banging on about a Minister for Men, and we are subject to ridicule and just general people throw shit at us. I'm used to it after 23 years. I've had a lot of shit thrown at me. But you kind of go, just for our children, just for better outcomes for our families, better outcomes for our country, wouldn't you want to try and move the dial and improve outcomes for men? We're half the fucking population. Why would you not want men to be doing better? Why would you not want men's health to be an issue, mental health? Why would you not want to tackle the male suicide epidemic? Why would you not want to introduce parental equality in the family courts? What is wrong with you?
Yeah.
Really?
It sounds crazy, doesn't it? When you put it like that, it's
It is absolute.
illogical.
It's totally illogical. But we've got to, rattle the cage, do what we can do the best we can do in terms of trying to stand up and raise this issue. I mean, we've campaigned all this time. Yeah, I'm not getting any younger. I'm 57, rolling around with police officers. It's still a possibility, but I've done it for 23 years. And then people say, "Oh, you could do more campaigning." We're going, guys, I've done it for 23. I've done all these things and been arrested over 30 times. But yeah, there is a need for that. But we have to balance that as Fathers for Justice, we started off as a campaigning group, and now we've evolved into being more of a help organization. So we've got to balance our responsibilities to people who come to us for help, because that's our priority now. But then we also got to look at saying, well, what else can we do in terms of political protest? I mean, I've got a load of ideas. I've got over 500 ideas backed up on this very laptop. But you're just going to go in, if I put myself back in the piranha bowl, with all the press and all the rest of it. And I mean, the press intrusion when we were, when we were really high profile was pretty ugly. I
Yeah.
didn't enjoy it, and it was fine for about 5 or 10 minutes. But I've got my children to think about. I've got my youngest son who's 18 and he's just finishing college. You always have life issues going on, as well as doing, helping dads. But yeah, we need people to step up, step up to the plate as well. We need people your age, younger people, coming out and saying, look, you've got to get involved in civil disobedience, in my view. You've got to get involved in civil protest, because campaigning is not a spectator sport. It requires commitment and sacrifice. So yeah, we need more people. But if people do want to people do want to step up to the plate, we're here. Let me know.
Yeah.
But in time, we just want to get help and assistance to people.
Yeah. Matt, I appreciate your time, mate, coming on to the pod and having a good conversation again. Like these
Yeah.
conversations, they're not had.
No, anywhere,
No.
anywhere. It just is. Unfortunately, the mainstream media, and I know people bang on about the mainstream media, but they really don't want to know about this issue. The only time we ever got on, I did loads of media and stuff, only when it looked like an action movie.
Yeah.
Somebody hanging off Buckingham Palace, or we'd powder bomb the Prime Minister, or whatever it was. We took national lottery off air in front of 11 million people, unless it looked like an action movie. Yeah. They did not give a shit. And then, but maybe we just need to, need to get back and do a little bit of that. So
Do a bit of powder bombing. Yeah.
do a bit of, well, yeah. Well, I saw the guy who did it the other day. Amazing guy called Guy Harrison, fantastic bloke. And I saw him the other day, and yeah, that was a guy who's got cojones the size of a ball, hasn't got his rocks off since the last Fiesta. That is a bloke with balls, let me tell you. But yeah, he powder bombed Tony Blair in a House of Commons back in 2004. Let me tell you, and that was in the days where you could smuggle powder bombs
Yeah.
in your trousers. You just tied them on the inside of the belt loop and left them hanging down. So say, like you had extra size bollocks, but nobody in national security in those days was going to squeeze them to find out if they were just, if that was biological, or if it was something else you were packing in there. God bless them. But yeah, shout out for Guy Harrison, great bloke.
Yeah. Cool, Matt. I appreciate
God
you.
bless her.
Yeah.
Lovely speaking to you as always.
Thank you, my man.
Take care, dude.